Great. Okay, so thank you. So tonight's share is dedicated by Yonit Kirshner, Ilinishmas, Harav Moshe Shalkovsky Zatzal, Moshe Mordechai Ben Meir. And when Yonit asked me to dedicate the shir Ilinishmas Rabbi Shalkovsky, she said to me, everything I have is really from him. And she invoked Rabbi Akiva, who famously credited his wife Rachel for his Torah knowledge, declaring to his students, all that I have and all that you have is hers. And I said to her, I wasn't sure I could convey that depth in a WhatsApp or email. And so I said, I'll speak about it when I introduce the shiur. But the truth is, how can I convey in spoken words that are so limited, so finite, what that means? And I think Yonit speaks for his thousands of Talmidim who consider themselves as his daughters. And I don't know what source I had to be incredibly close to him, although as all the messages, and I've seen some people who on that WhatsApp have been pouring in since his patera from people talking about the incredibly close relationship they had with him, I have to admit that there's been a twinge of sibling rivalry. But Rabbi Shalkovsky didn't teach us. He formed us, he shaped us, he molded us, while still caring deeply and believing in us. And it's not that our lives are just enriched by knowing him. And I think that this is what Yonit was getting at. It's that our lives are the lives we live today because of him. Initially, when Yonit dedicated the shiur, I planned to give a shiur quoting Rabbi Shalkovsky, giving specific examples of things he did. And in the end, I decided not to. I was nervous I wouldn't get through it without crying. But on Friday, I read something that Rebbetzin Tzipora Hela Gottlieb wrote about him, what he taught, the ideas, the principles, what he taught and lived by. And on Shabbos, I was reading through my notes for today's shiur, and also I'm giving another shiur on Wednesday, Yetz Hashem. And as I read my notes, it's all him. I mean, just the fact that I'm sitting here speaking to you is because of his belief in me and his belief that he had in all of us. But now when I looked and I read those notes, the eyes through which I'm filtering the Torah, the specific ideas that I choose to share, what I emphasize over others, those are the principles that he lived by. And those are what I got through osmosis, or rather from watching a human, his avodas Hashem surpassed a malach. Yehi Zechro Baruch. I'm going to start the share now, but anybody at the end, if you'd like to unmute and just share something about Rabbi Shalkovsky, please feel free to do so. So ladies, does anybody have a favorite book? You can unmute yourselves and tell me, or you can put it in the chat. Anybody got a favorite book? Anyone? No favorite books? Okay. You can all hear me. Can I have a thumbs up from someone that you can hear me, Margot?
This is rather self-centered, but my favorite book is the one that I wrote. It's called More Than Thinking. And
what's your book? We can add it to our reading list. What book did you write?
It's I Love You More Than Cookies. And it's for children.
You know what? Your speaker's really, I can't hear you, but will you put it in the chat box so that we can all look it up?
Is it vibrating?
Yeah. But put it in the chat box.
Because she's got two going.
You've got two going.
Turn the one down.
You see, she's got a phone and her computer going.
Rough is the one that wanted.
It's not working. Judy, it's not working. Huh?
So weird.
Yeah, I'm going to mute. I'm going to actually mute. Somebody just suggested I mute everyone. I'm going to do that rather. Let me just see if I can mute our. Why can't I mute our participants though?
Deborah, Judy must switch one of her
mute all.
things
Okay,
off.
I'm just going to mute all. I'm going to mute all. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share. Thank you, Judy, for sharing your book. Anybody else wants to share their favorite book, they can, but I'm going to share my favorite book with you. Okay? And one of my favorite books, at least, is called The Lady and the Chocolate. And I'm going to read it to you. So, let's just make sure that you can see the pictures. Are we okay? Because I can't see. Can you see? No, you can't. Better? Yes? We can see? Let's see. Hello, lady, said the chocolate. Hello, chocolate, said the lady. No, you can't. This worked beforehand. Ah, that's better. Yeah? You want me, lady, don't you? Said the chocolate. You want me. You want me. It's not working. It worked perfectly when I recorded beforehand. You'll just have to listen. No, chocolate, said the lady. I do not want you, for I am strong. I can resist my fickle urges and my frivolous desires. But you need me, lady, said the chocolate. You know you do. No, chocolate, said the lady. I do not need you, for the weight that you put on my thighs, my waist, and my bottom is not worth the satisfaction of the eating. Ah, said the chocolate, but think of the rich, silky pleasure as I touch your lips. Think of the dark velvet's sweetness as I melt on your tongue. Think of the surge of happiness as I dissolve inside you and we become one. Eat me, lady, and I will tell no one. Eat me, eat me. No, shouted the lady. Stop, you are cruel. It is true, chocolate, that in eating you there is great pleasure. But after the pleasure there is sickness and there is guilt. I shall not eat you. But lady, said the chocolate, being eaten is the only reason for my existence. The chocolate looked at the lady with an expression of the utmost sorrow, and a single tear fell to the floor. Are you going to deny me the reason for my existence? Now the lady was a lady of great kindness and compassion, as many ladies are, and she could not help her heart from going out to the chocolate. Not working. No, chocolate, said the lady, I would not do that. And with a touch of infinite gentleness, the lady picked up the chocolate and she began to eat. And having eaten the chocolate, the lady was overcome by feelings of pleasure more wonderful than she had ever known before. Sorry, I can see you just seeing a blur. And henceforth let all ladies know that it is not they who need chocolate for happiness, it is chocolate that needs them. And in eating, they are performing a very great and generous service indeed. The end. Now, why am I sharing this with you? We're reading Sefer Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, and the laws of sacrifices that dominate the first few parshas of the Sefer are among the hardest in the Torah to relate to. And it's very hard for people living in the 21st century to wrap their heads around it. And I know when I read these parshas and read about the splitting of the necks and the sprinkling of the blood and the congealing of all the icky stuff, my eyes glaze over. And it's probably only natural to wonder, shouldn't this be relegated to the same place as idolatry? So we had these misguided people in previous generations who bowed to gods of wood and stone, and these misguided people also brought sacrifices. Chas v'shalom, that's not the case. And incidentally, idolatry is alive and kicking. Gods of wood and stone have just been replaced with gods of gold and silver and gods of followers and likes, etc. But the other attitude is that sacrifices are cruel. What did the poor animal do to deserve this? Judaism is barbaric, chas v'shalom. We have to know that there is nothing barbaric, gruesome, or cruel about it. It's inconceivable that the same Torah that is insistent on ensuring that there's no tsar b'alei chaim, anguish to an animal, that is so particular about shchita, whatever those anti-Semitic lobbying groups would have you believe, shchita is the most painless and humane way of slaughtering, that has laws that govern the ways you have to feed your animals before you eat yourself, that this Torah would be barbaric and cruel to animals while offering them up as sacrifices. So what's going on here? And how can this help us as we do the avodah, the inner worth of Sefira Sa'amer, and as we go and grow through life? Now, there's an incredible idea. It's Kabbalistic, so Baruch Hashem, you're all on mute, and you can just let me parrot what I've said without asking questions. Well, parrot what I've learned without asking questions. But they're different, and they're differing opinions among the commentators, and we know this, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. But this is Arizal's approach. and we're not going to go into depth, just enough to get the basic concept. And the Arizal explains that every created entity possesses a type of soul. Let's call it sparks of godliness or sparks of Kedusha, of holiness. Now, this includes everything from this paper to rocks and other inanimate objects to animals and, of course, people. Now, this soul or spark of godliness not only sustains the creation's existence, but it imbues it with its purpose in the world. However, and this is a big however, Hashem created the world, including the souls of animals, through speech. But it's only regarding a person's soul that the verse states, Vayipach apav nishmas chaim, he breathed into his nostrils the soul of life, and man became a living soul. And the Kabbalists explain that when one speaks, he uses a relatively superficial level of breath. Like right now, I can speak and speak and speak and speak and be saying all these words, but not actually yet needing to breathe, to stop and pause and take a breath. But when one blows, you blow from deep within oneself. So too, man's soul comes from the very essence of the divine. So while these divine sparks may have in some way a similar characteristic to the human soul, it's very, very different. And we spoke about it, those of you who listened to the show 2 weeks ago, we spoke about this in greater detail. And we said that the same way that our neshamas, our soul, are part of Hashem because he blew part of himself into Adam, we're nothing like God. Although that said, in my 30 years of shidduchim, I have dated some guys who probably think they might be. When Hashem created the world, he invested in humans the power to elevate these divine sparks or souls that are found throughout creation. That story I read at the beginning is not a joke. The author thinks it is, but unbeknown to him, I'm pretty sure it's unbeknown to him, he's actually delving into this Kabbalistic concept. When we use things correctly, we can extract and then elevate these holy sparks. And that is a Jew's mission in the world. I was in Singapore a few years ago, and I went to Sentosa Island. I don't know if any of you have been to Sentosa Island. You can put up your hand if you had with Singapore. Sentosa is a tourist trap, like most things in Singapore are. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I loved Singapore, but they know how to make money there. And from Sentosa, you can go to another island. You know, when you picture a real island, actually, Margot's got a beautiful island background drop here, or your little emoji island on your phone. It's like a little circle of land with a person under an umbrella. So this was the other island. And you walked over a rope bridge, and that's how you got to this island, whose claim to fame was that it was the southernmost point of continental Asia. So I walked over the bridge, and I got to the island where, of course, there were lines and lines of people waiting to take a selfie next to the sign that said this is the southernmost point. So I didn't want to wait in the line. I went walking around the island, which, as I said, it was tiny, but it was lush and green and untouched and just gorgeous. And all of a sudden, I had this urge, and I sat down on a rock, and I said to Helen, and I emailed, and actually it was Yanita I emailed to. I emailed her a video of it, and I said, I've just said to Helen here, and if there were any holy sparks that I just elevated, I said there should be a schus for her mum, alav shalom, who was unwell at the time. And I hope Yanit knows me well enough not to think I was being pretentious or potty. But I imagine there must have been many Jewish visitors to that island, and I was probably not the first person to say to Helen there. But I cannot deny that there was a pull, that this was something I needed to do. And this idea really hit home. Of course, then I got carried away and I said, let me daven mincha here. We'll have a whole firework display with all the sparks of Kedusha. And Baruch Hashem, before I took my three steps, somebody started calling everybody off the island because they were closing it for the night. It was tiny enough for the island to be closed for the night. But it's for this reason that in general, the way an animal soul is elevated and returned after its death to its divine source is through its positive and spiritual interactions with man. So, for instance, we can elevate whether we call it the souls or these sparks of Kedusha of a kosher animal by making a proper blessing, a bracha before eating, by using the energy gained for making mitzvahs, for doing mitzvahs, for helping others. So what does this mean? It means we have an enormous responsibility in our interactions with the animal kingdom. After all, the animal's elevation in the afterlife can be dependent upon our positive interactions with it. Did we all see how much the chocolate wanted to be eaten? Did we all feel sorry for the chocolate when it cried? Were we all ready to volunteer to eat the chocolate if the lady didn't, even if, well, for me, it wasn't 85% dark fine Swiss chocolate? And I think probably the answer is yes. Because if an animal's elevation in bovine heaven is dependent on how it's used in this world, for the animal itself, what could be greater than it being brought as a korban? The noun korban, which we usually translate as sacrifice, and the verb lahakriv, to offer something as a sacrifice, actually means, if we want the root, anybody want to, and I'm going to keep you all on mute rather, just because I'm worried about that, but it means that which is brought close, and the act of bringing close. So the animal is a conduit for us to become close to Hashem. What more could it want? And that's according to the Arizal. There are other ideas. All I can tell you is that it came very handy a few years ago when I was teaching about Mitzvah Girl, and at the time they had to put their dog down. And her mum WhatsApped me to tell me and said to me her daughter wants to know if dogs go to heaven, so can I speak to her about it in that next lesson? And Baruch Hashem, I had enough warning that I could work with these ideas to tell her the truth and keep her happy. But the point is, which we have to know, there's nothing cruel, barbaric, or gruesome about korbanos. For an animal, being offered as a korban is the pinnacle it can reach. And this is something that we're called to do in all our interactions. In the last shiur, we spoke about Kedusha and holiness, and we said that it's something that we're all called to do in our eating, in our relationships, in our daily habits. The Torah invites us to live a little higher, a little more mindfully, a little more like someone who's aware they're part of something sacred. So when you eat that piece of cake, there's a spark in there that you can elevate, and specifically you. Now, when you go to the shops and you choose a few apples, those aren't random apples. Those are apples with your name on it, because you are the one who can use your unique kaiches to extract the holy sparks from it. And this is a powerful idea, not in a heavy, what a responsibility, what if I mess up kind of way, but rather in a very beautiful way. Yes, you, with all the parts of you, the parts that maybe you'd forget about, including the parts of the falling downs and the whatnot, have an apple with your name on it, because you have a koach that nobody else has. But now, reading through Vayikra, we're almost at the end, but we're once again faced with the question, which, if you've been learning with me, you'll know we've asked this many times before. There's a principle we need to know, and that is that the Torah is written in telegram style. I'm talking about the Morse code one, not the app. But the Torah is concise. Complete sagas and complex laws are often depicted in a few short verses. We deduce halachas from a single ladder. Each word in the Torah contains layers upon layers of interpretation. Chazal tell us there's not a single superfluous word. There's not even a single superfluous letter in the Torah. If a verse is repetitive, if two words are used when one would suffice, or a longer word is used when a shorter one would just do the job, there's a message here, a new concept, another law. And yet, these animals' offerings, these korbanos, are described at length in Sefer Vayikra. The Torah is not a history book. The Torah is not a storybook. The Torah doesn't tell us things because it's good for trivial pursuit. The Torah comes from the word laharos, to teach. So the Torah is a guidebook. The question is, why does the Torah then, which is a guidebook, the divine blueprint for living the best possible life, find it necessary to devote hundreds of its verses to the laws of korbanos? This is prime real estate in the Torah. And the answer is exactly that, because it's a guidebook. And we can learn from them, from these korbanos, things to implement into our lives so that we can live our best possible life. Which begs the question, how today, in 2026, can korbanos help me in my personal growth and relationship to Hashem? So as we've explained in previous shiurim, every law and episode recorded in the Torah may be appreciated not only from a physical point of view, but also from a metaphysical perspective. And the detailed laws of korbanos are no exception. Physically, it's true, they don't relate to us in our present age, but on a psychological and spiritual level, these laws relate to us. It's timeless messages. And so thanks to Jewish thinkers throughout the generations who've tried to understand the inner significance of the korbanos, we can implement very tangible things in our lives today. And so there are, as with everything in the Torah, very deep and esoteric ideas surrounding the Korbanos. But I want to share a simple, at least I'm calling it simple because I could understand it, but it's a profound idea from Rav Shneir Zalman of Liadi. You may have heard the name, he's also the author of Tanya, and he was the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he noticed a grammatical oddity when it's discussing the Korbanos. And it says, when a man, Adam, will bring an offering from among you to God, from the animals, from the cattle, or from the flock, shall you bring your offering. So clearly, the language here is rather strained. In fact, most translators have actually edited the text to read more smoothly, like when a man among you will bring an offering, which is definitely improvement in the flow of the verse. So I know I try to keep everything in English. I want to switch to some Hebrew here, and I'm hopeless with Hebrew grammar, so if there's any resident Hebrew grammarians, feel free to take over. But in Hebrew, the word order of the sentence is strange. Okay, we'd expect it to read ki Adam, to read Adam mikem ki yakrev, when one of you offers a sacrifice. Instead, what it says is Adam ki yakrev mikem, when one offers a sacrifice of you. The essence of sacrifice, of Korbanos, said Rav Shneir Zalman, is that we offer ourselves. We bring to Hashem our faculties, our energies, our thoughts and emotions. The physical form of sacrifice, an animal offered on the altar, is only an external manifestation of an inner act. The real sacrifice is mikem, of you. We give Hashem something of ourselves. So what exactly is it that we give? We're giving Hashem a korban. What is it that we're giving him? So we're told that Hashem created man out of two very distinct parts. A nefesh hasichlis, an intellectual soul, from seichel, or it's also called the nefesh ha'elokus, the godly soul, from Elokim. So we've got this intellectual, this godly soul, and we have a nefesh habehemis, an animal soul. Now, each has its desires and inclinations, and each is competing with each other, vying for primacy over man. And different commentators throughout the ages have slightly different interpretations and understandings of what these are and what our approach to them should be. So if you've heard this concept before, whether you've learned it of Seichovas Alavavis or Tanya or based on the Zohar or whatever your understanding, where you learned it from, your understanding might be slightly different. I'm going to keep it very much more general rather than going into nitty-gritty. In fact, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, right, this is one thing I don't think Rabbi Shalkovsky, he did not like me teaching anything remotely Kabbalistic, but this isn't. This is a concept that he would teach as well. Now, the nefesh hasichlis, or elokus, is that which drives us, I think. What he do? Let me not put words into his mouth. The nefesh hasichlis is what drives us to do all that is good and proper. It yearns to have a life of meaning. It craves connection with Hashem. It's about transcendence. This is the part of us that seeks higher idealistic goals in life. But this nefesh habehemis, this animal soul, on the other hand, is comprised of the base instincts necessary for survival. So that's the part of man that's there just as the rest of the animal kingdom. And it's made up of hungers, of appetites and desires. And it's the part of us that revolves around ease and gratification. So what happens? This inherent dichotomy in humans, it creates a friction in between us. Okay, we've got self-centeredness and then self-transcendence. So we've got this battle between frivolousness and transience on the one hand, and genuine meaning and permanence on the other hand. And so this intellectual soul and this animal soul are constantly in competition with each other. And much like a muscle where each one becomes stronger with use, or wastes away with disuse. So the more the person uses his seichel, the stronger and more dominant becomes, and the more he allows his passions and desires to rule, the stronger a hold they'll have over him. And we are engaged in a constant battle. So just in summary, on the one hand, we're physical beings. We're part of nature. We have physical needs. We food, drink, shelter. We're born, we live. At Me'eve Esrim, we die. Yet we're not simply animals. We have within us immortal longings. We can think, speak, communicate, love, extract holy sparks from chocolate. We can, by acts of speaking and listening, reach out to others. We can articulate ideas and be moved by high ideals. Physically, what are we? You don't want to hear my response when I weighed myself post-Pesach and looked at my thighs. But spiritually, we can be greater than angels. We have a godly soul. The nature of korbanos, understood psychologically, is therefore clear. What we offer Hashem is not just a physical animal, but the nefesh habehemis, the animal soul within us. And what we're called to do in our lifetime is to slay our inner animal and work on our midas, our character, until the beast within us has been neutralized or even greater sanctified. So what does this mean? Say someone's highly strung, and the moment when somebody's upset about something, one loses one's temper. So just giving into it, losing one's temper, that's the animal soul. Neutralizing it would be taking a deep breath and watching YouTube videos of kittens or puppies. Sanctifying it would be taking this midah, using all that fire, all that rage, and turning it into outrage, to harness it, to make a difference in the world. So you see all this anti-Semitism, whatever's going on, sign petitions, create organizations, whatever it may be, but use it to make a difference. So how does this work out in detail? And I just want to remind everyone that we're looking at one out of many opinions of what this means and how to do this. Just want to check that nobody's asked any questions. No, nobody's asked any questions. So a hint, if you go back and you look in Vayikra when it's speaking about the korbanos, and it mentions that there are three types of animals that in a certain verse that we bring, and one is behema, the animal, one is bakar, cattle, and then we've got son, which is the flock. And each represents a separate animal-like feature of the human personality. So behema represents the animal instinct itself. And one idea to take from this is that animals spend their time searching for food. Their lives are bounded by the struggle to survive. To sacrifice the animal within us is to be moved by something more than mere survival. The godly soul within us is the force that makes us look up beyond the physical world, beyond mere survival, in search of meaning, of purpose, of goals. It's looking beyond that 9 to 5, that rat race, whatever it is. It's the force that, despite it being easier to snuggle up, especially if you're cold in Cape Town tonight, I know, and you just want to be under the blankets, and to do something mindless and say, no, I'm going to listen to a shiur instead. Because we want more than mere survival. We want to live a life of meaning and purpose and connection to Hashem. And again, it's Baruch Hashem, those of us, especially those of you who were here for Rabbi Shalkovsky, that's what we saw. Bakar, cattle, stampeding bull in a china shop. Unless constrained by fences, cattle don't respect boundaries. To sacrifice this cattle, the bakar, is to learn to recognize and respect boundaries between holy and profane, pure and impure, permitted and forbidden, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. But what when the boundaries are not so clear? We spoke last time that the Ramban says Kedusha is not, can I do this, but should I? And this is something really insidious, I find, specifically now in the world we're living in. And a number of years ago, I was speaking to Rabbi Shalkovsky about Neve, where he was just the mentor for 50 years. But I said, Neve is a Babel. You could just go to Babel. It was a Babel, and you could just go there, and you could just learn Torah in this little cocoon. And he said to me, not anymore. And I looked at him like, what does he mean? And he said to me, now there's the phone. And he said, you go to the classes, and you go back to the dorm, and you turn on the phone. And he said to me that a madricha had invited some girls to a Melava Malka where she showed them a film on a laptop. He said, because we've lost a sense of boundaries. And we're living in a world where things are so blurred. You know, the outside world filters in even when you, Baruch Hashem, have the Swiss to live in Heilige Ramat Beit Shemesh. And I'm going to get myself into trouble if I say too much now. But I saw this a few hours ago, and I feel I need to say something. So there's a WhatsApp group for Rabbi Shalkovsky, just for tefillahs and everything with the same flame. And somebody shared on it earlier on today a beautiful article about Rabbi Shalkovsky that was written in one of the magazines. And I read it and I actually had to laugh, though. It's the only thing I could do, at the dichotomy of the article and the adverts. Because next to an article to this beautiful, beautiful article that spoke about the Shalkovskys' tiny, modest Givacha Oldera is an advert for apartments, and it said premium finishes included as standard. Now, is there anything wrong to have premium finishes? No. But we're called upon to create boundaries. Do I want premium finishes to be a luxury that I enjoy? No problem with that. Or do these premium finishes, are they standard? Is it a necessity that I have to have? And the next advert was for cheesecake. And the copy said, decadent set in stone. Is there anything wrong with having good cheesecake for Shavuos? No, especially now that we've learned that there are holy sparks to extract from it, which I have no doubt burn up all the calories we're eating as we extract them. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, do we want to create a boundary between buying that cheesecake, the covered Yom Tov, and decadence being a value in and of itself? And please, before I get myself into trouble, I'm not saying things are wrong. The magazine is excellent. The copywriting is excellent. I'm sure the cheesecake is too. At that price, I went onto their website. It better be. But just to be aware about putting in those boundaries to not let ideas that we don't want to infiltrate into our lives. Fine Nitzon, flocks, represents the herd instinct, the powerful drive to move in a given direction because others are doing likewise. And if we look at the great figures of Judaism, Abraham, what's Abraham called? Anyone? Oh, you're all muted. It's been a long time.
Not Ishtam. Someone else was Ishtam.
Ishtam, no, not. But he was called Ha'ivri, from the other side. From the other side. And if we think about Yosef and Moshe, they were distinguished precisely by their ability to stand apart from the herd. Abraham, he looked at the idolaters of the day and he said, nothing going. He refused to challenge, to be different, to challenge the idols of the age, to refuse to chant from the river to the sea and all the other woke philosophies, because that's what's in at the moment. And I'm sure, even if you're not on social media and things, but you've seen that that they're people who, they're standing there with the signs out there from the river to the sea. And you ask them, what river? What sea? Do you even know what happened on October the 7th? And you just get blank faces. But what's it? What's driving them? Let's just follow the masses. And that ultimately is the meaning of holiness in Judaism. Kadosh, holy, is to set something apart. It's different, it's separate, it's distinctive. Darwinism and other similar movements would have us believe that we're animals. After all, we share 98% of our genes with primates. So what are we? We're an accident, a random series of genetic mutations that just happen to be more adapted to survival than any other species. The nefesh habehemis, the animal soul, is all there is. And Judaism says nothing doing. And how does it refute it? Through korbanos. We can redirect our animal instincts. We can rise above mere survival. We're capable of honoring boundaries. We can step outside our environment. We can transcend the animal, the cattle, the flock, whatever it is. No animal is capable of self-transformation. No lion is going to wake up one morning and say, I'm worried about carbon footprint and animal rights. Let me be a vegan instead. No animal is capable of self-transformation, but we are. By bringing that, which is the animal within us, close to Hashem, we allow, as Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs says so beautifully, the material to be suffused with the spiritual, and we become something else, no longer slaves of nature, but servants of Hashem. And that is why the Torah is seemingly so obsessed with korbanos. There's a reason it devotes so much of its precious space to it. After all, our task in life is to challenge our own inner animal every day, bringing it one step closer to our higher, deeper self, which enables us to achieve dveikus, our cleaving to Hashem. But it's not easy. In this conflict, the nefesh habehemis, this animal soul, has an unfair advantage. Just think about it. All of our daily activities, from working for a living to eating and sleeping, are constantly nourishing the animal soul. I mean, how many times do I sit down with a slab of lint? It's my go-to fine Swiss chocolate, intending to extract the holy sparks, but my animal soul takes over. So if at first you don't succeed, try again, is my motto with chocolate. But you know what? Not everyone is as strong-willed as I am, with my being determined to take out those holy sparks from chocolate. And the Mesilas Yesharim, in one of the chapters on Zrezos, explains that our default is lethargy. It's not like we've got these two sides, the animal on one side, and we start off at neutral. We're actually starting off with being lethargic and not wanting to do things and letting the animal soul take over. And so when you hear this, it's so easy to get despondent. And I think Korbanos has an answer for that as well. In connection with a person who has to bring a flour offering, this was the Korban Mincha, the Pasuk says, and when a nefesh, a soul, will bring a meal offering to Hashem. And Rashi asks, why does it say, here's the person is called a soul, a nefesh, in connection with the Mincha offering, and we don't see this with any of other prior offerings. And Rashi explains that we're dealing here with a person who's too poor to bring an animal, too poor to even bring a bird offering. And so all he can afford is this inexpensive flowering offering. And so Rashi writes that Hashem says, although the poor man's offering is modest, I consider it on his behalf as if he offered his soul. And a taxi driver in Eretz Israel once told the following story to an American yeshiva student. And he said, I once gave the Stipler Gaon a ride in my taxi. And the Gaon asked me, he said, do you set aside times for learning Torah? Do you learn Gemara? And the taxi driver said, I told him the truth. And I'm exhausted when I come home. It's been a long day of driving and I have my supper. And so afterwards I go to the Gemara Shiur in the neighborhood. And, I had to tell him, the nightly shiur is an hour long, but inevitably after 5 minutes I fall asleep. And I'm only woken, 55 minutes later, the sound of the Maggid shiur, the teacher closing his Gemara. And it's the end of the shiur. And he said to the Stipler, I pick up about 5 minutes worth of Gemara study every night. And the Stipler responded by quoting the pasuk we've just said, when a soul shall bring a meal offering. The Stipler was saying, this taxi driver is giving all he can. The fact that he falls asleep every single night at the Gemara shiur after 5 minutes is due to the fact that he's exhausted. But he makes an effort to come to the shiur, and he's giving all that he can give. Trying our best, making that effort, is all that Hashem ever asks from us. And that's the thing, we're 2/3 of the way through the Omer. And maybe you've accomplished what you set out to do, but that's not in our hands. And maybe you feel like me. Those of you who know Rabbi Shalkovsky, his famous Erev Rosh Hashanah Shiur, and Yom Kippur, some years he'd give it 1 year, where he tells you to take something on and then take what you've written and cut it in half, and then take what you've said and cut it in half, and then take it again. And then he would say, take one thing and then keep to it. So Baruch Hashem, when I'm good and I listen to him, there's one thing, but maybe if you were like me and you took on too much for the Omer, or maybe you didn't do it, whether you managed to accomplish it or not, that's not in our hands. The last third of the Omer, what Hashem's asking of us is just to take that little step, to make that effort. That's all that he asks. Many years ago, I heard an explanation of Korbanos from Rabbi David Orlovsky, which I may have adapted somehow over the years, so I'm not, supposedly not the whole is his, but this is the gist of it. It's a mashal. There's a little boy, and every Erev Shabbos he sees his father bringing a beautiful bouquet of flowers for his mother, and her face lights up when she sees them, and she'll take them carefully and she puts them into a beautiful crystal vase and she places them at the center of the Shabbos table, and every time she looks at them, she smiles. And the little boy says, I want to do that too for mommy. I want to make mommy smile too, just like daddy does every Erev Shabbos. And so the next Erev Shabbos, he goes to the field outside his house and he collects some dandelions and some ivy and a few stray blades of grass. And he comes home and he gives it to his mother. And her face lights up when she sees them, even possibly more so when she saw the bouquet of flowers earlier. And she takes them carefully and she puts them in a smaller but just as beautiful crystal vase and places them in the center of the Shabbos table next to the others. And every time she looks at them, she smiles. And the little boy is so proud. He's so happy. He brought flowers just like Daddy. He made Mommy smile just like Daddy. And this continues week after week. She gets a beautiful bouquet of flowers, and every week he comes, he brings his little bunch of weeds and wildflowers, and his mother lovingly and carefully puts them in a crystal vase in the center of the table and smiles. But one week, after this had been going on for some time, he's outside. He's playing football. He's playing soccer with his friends in the field. And he remembers, oh, it's Erev Shabbos and he hasn't collected flowers for his mother. But he's playing ball with his friends. He doesn't feel like bringing the flowers. But you know what? His mother's come to expect it. So he quickly grabs some plants and runs home with his bunch of verlept, bedraggled weeds, and he pushes them on the kitchen table, and he says, here's your flowers for Shabbos. And he runs back out to play. And his mother picks up the bunch of weeds as she wipes away her tears of pain, her tears of sorrow. No, we'd go to the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, and we'd say, Hashem, look, Hashem, I brought you a sheep. And we'd be so proud and beaming and excited. And Hashem would say, what, a sheep? Oh, a sheep, thank you, thank you. It's a great sheep, so white and fluffy and, well, fluffy, thank you. And we'd feel so good, so proud, so happy. We did something for Hashem. But then time passed, and we got to a point where we'd rather be out with our friends, indulging our nefesh habehemus, binge watching Netflix, whatever we'd be doing, than bringing a korban, then coming close to Hashem. And so we came to the Beis HaMikdash with the attitude, here's your sheep, and then ran off to indulge our animal soul. And Hashem wiped away his tears of pain, his tears of sorrow. A sheep. Hashem didn't need our sheep. He's got 75 million sheep in Australia. And if he wants more sheep, he can make more sheep. He is God after all. He wanted our hearts. He wanted a connection with us. He wanted to be close to us. But we didn't. And so we lost the Beis HaMikdash. It's so easy to get overwhelmed, redirect our animal instincts, rise above mere survival, honor boundaries, step outside our environment. We want that. We wouldn't be sitting here listening to Shiur if we didn't. But still, it's easy to get overwhelmed, if not a bit despondent. Ladies, we have to know that Rachmana Lebaboy, all Hashem wants is our heart. All he wants is to be close to us. When we read the parshas of the Avodah, of the service in the Beis HaMikdash, we're meant to look not only at our history, but to the present. When these parshas are not talking about a memory of past intimacy, but it's a celebration of the power which even now lies ready in our hands. We have to know that our small actions, the trying even when we don't succeed, the little wins, the picking ourselves up when we fall, we are great, and that Hashem is as close as our longings and our love. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Any questions?